Alright, this is actually the second time of me recording this. I actually did something really dumb in the first time where I didn't change the audio output. So everything went shit, everything went silent, which is really dumb. But today I'll be teaching you guys how I make these ambiences that sound similar to the ones in my Monad sample pack. So if you watched my last video, then you'll know what Monad is. But for those who didn't, Monad is a free sample pack that I put together that allows you guys to make some great music without any sort of fancy plugins. So basically, before you learn how I make these pads, you need to know something about theory, which is, so when you play chords, C major for example, like a C major triad, of course a C, G, it sounds something like this. It's just a normal chord. It sounds fine. But sometimes I really like to add some extra notes on top. For the basics, it's like the sevens. Sometimes I'll omit the third. In C major chord, I'll omit the E note. And I'll add the second. The D, or I'll also add the seventh on top. Sometimes I'll just add like the fourth or something. So basically, I'll do some extra stuff. But once you learn about this, here's the actual sound design part, which is actually really simple. What you do is simply slap on the reverb, turn the decay time way up. So like in Valhalla Room, you get up to 100 seconds. But you know what? Let's use some stock reverb. So what I usually do is I open up another audio track and have it resample what I'm playing on the piano. So if you have like trained ears, you can tell it's a C major chord. And you can also tell that I did some extra notes on top. So now it sounds something like this. Holy shit, this is actually pretty good. But basically what you do is you find the parts you like. And you basically just loop them. One thing I did here is that not only did I duplicate them, I actually reverse it. So now when you duplicate the whole thing, it perfectly loops. But yeah, that's basically it. But to show you how powerful this technique is, let's pull up a really disgusting sounding instrument. So here I recorded myself hitting a Spider-Man mug. But yeah, here's how they sound. It doesn't have a really pleasant sound, but it has a really clear pitch. So I threw it into a sampler, and now it's a playable instrument. So what I meant by powerful basically is that since the reverb is really long, kind of blurs out the sounds. Also, when you play those extra notes on top, it blurs it out even more. So it doesn't really matter what instrument you're recording on. As long as it has a pitch, it should be sounding fine. So if I record it right now, oh, by the way, for some reason, usually when you finish resampling, you have this warp option on. You hear these subtle clicks at the background. Sometimes it could be the recording itself, but sometimes it's just the warp function acting weirdly. So that's just one little tip. But yeah, so here's what the mug sounds like. Basically, you just do the exact same thing, find your favorite bits and loop it. Now you can try layer them together. Since the first loop is in C and the second one is in E, I'll pitch it back down. As you can hear, they both have really different timbre, like a different tone, different sound. So for the piano, it sounds really mellow, but for those mucks, it sounds metallic, it sounds really shimmery. So this is kind of like how I layer my pads, like the basic principles. I kind of covered that in my previous video, but here it is again. Now you can tell they have really different sounds, different roles in this layering process. You can simply EQ them accordingly. As I said, the mucks have a really bright top and not much in the low end, so I simply high pass it. I might tame those high end a little bit so it doesn't really overwhelm the listeners. Since this is a pad, so it should be staying in the background. It shouldn't be grabbing too much attention in the mix. As for the piano, since we threw a reverb on it, there should be some really muddy low end. You hear those? You might need a pair of headphones to hear them, but basically you want to high pass it to leave space for like a sub bass to work. Now let's play them both together. Maybe we'll try balance out the volume. Yeah, it sounds pretty good, I'd say. So what you can do next is resample it again, which is also why in my previous video I mentioned to make these ambiences, it involves a lot of resampling. Then if you like those sounds, you can save them into your sample library. I found it really useful and important because I used to be like, man, I hate samples. I can just create everything from scratch in a project. Fuck samples. It just makes you lazy when you rely on these sounds. But for pads, it's just different because I can simply throw in another sample and layer it beneath. Sometimes you can't even tell I'm using the samples from my sample library because when they're layered together, it's just a wall of sounds. Yeah, we'll use that one as in B, so. Now your workflow is way faster and you can group them and further process it. Of course, you can also like EQ them individually, but like I'm doing a tutorial now, so I gotta be quick. Also, it's sounding pretty great, so I don't really mind skipping the EQ step. So what you could do now is actually throw in some camel crusher like saturation, distortion and stuff. Maybe not that distorted. Maybe a low pass filter just to like cut out the very top end. You don't really have to copy every single step. Like these EQ settings is quite specific to the sound, so it might not work with yours because you might be sampling off other instruments. One thing you can also do is you resample this process signal and throw that shit into granular. Now you have something that's less random because with this, it's a reverb tail after all. So it sounds like it's morphing all the time. But if you want something that's more predictable, you can throw it into a granular synth. Like in this case, I use granulator, and you have it loop the same part of the sample over and over again. Because this is how granular synthesis work. Yeah, maybe you adjust like the release, the tag and stuff. Play around with like pitch shifting. Because sometimes when they're pitched up and down, you get different tones out of it, which is also why you want to save these pads in your sample library. Because you can just quickly grab one of them and pitch them around and see if you can get anything good out of it. One more thing to mention here is that for the piano that I used for this tutorial is actually a custom one I made last summer called Jonathan's Upright Fell. So if you like how it sounds, you can check it out on my Payhip page. I'll put a link in the description. But yeah, that's how I make these ambiences. I hope this tutorial helps. Also, let me know what you guys want to learn next, because recently I made this goal for 2022, which is to put out 2 videos every single month. Because if you look back, beside that Monad sample pack video, the last time I make a video was way back in January, February or something, like early 2021. I'm really looking to push myself to the limits in 2022, so definitely let me know what you guys want to learn next. But yeah, I guess I'll see you guys later.